getting things to the proper scale. I don't mean what we hear most about in the common literature today of getting initiatives bigger, getting the impact bigger. But when I think about the barrier being getting to the proper scale, what I think I mean by that is the mindset scale. Because as individuals, that's all we have to work on and work with. Just me. And so when I think about getting to the proper scale, it's like the scale of perspective. And so I think about what I learned from reading Daniel Kim. There are 5 levels of perspective, and we spend individually and organizationally most of our time on the lowest in the first one, which is daily behavior. And so daily behavior tends to come often in repetitive cycles. I've referred, as most of you have heard me say to you one time or another as I've extended the invitation to be here, I'm inviting you to get off the treadmill. Because that treadmill of daily behavior is the thing that we sometimes feel trapped in the doing. Always the doing. And Kim says, but we've got to rise above to look at the patterns of behavior. So maybe we've stepped from the dance floor up to the mezzanine. And now we've got a little bit more perspective and we can start to see themes, threads, patterns in this behavior. So our mindset starts to shift a bit as a result of the pattern. Oh, isn't that interesting? Well, why is that happening? And Kim says those patterns of behavior happen because of those, what he calls systemic structures, the policies, the procedures, the rules that are in place by which we operate, that shape behavior. Well, those structures and policies and rules are in place probably because, conscious or not, we share a certain mindset. We share, there are some prevailing assumptions. We can do this, we can't do that. When those people say this, they mean that. And those things, often undiscussed, are part of that cultural fabric that is often so hard to navigate. And those prevailing assumptions in those shared mental models are probably, again, often unconsciously, the result of some, what he calls vision in use. We must be tilting toward that thing on the horizon, and therefore we assume these things, we have this mental model that creates these structures and rules that leads to these behaviors, that creates these daily behaviors. And so for me, the idea of scale, getting to the right scale, when I come into this room, where do I want us to be in our conversation? In daily behavior? So the hardest thing on day one, especially as I've talked to many of you over the last day or two, it's always the hardest time for me is the 48 hours before conversation. And I look at my phone with dread, and then I see a name. Uh-oh, that's one of the participants in conversation. Should I open that email? Gary, just wanted to let you know my flight, and what I get in those stories is you are literally, most of you, parachuting in from really busy lives. And the first day of conversation is always hard because you're in daily behavior bone deep. And so my invitation for you today is set it aside. It'll be there. set it aside. I invite you not to bring it into your viewpoint solely. I mean, it's there, it's part of the whole air that you're breathing. But I invite you to hold it loosely, because the daily behavior, the patterns of that daily behavior, the work that you're doing right now will be there for you. The work that we're doing together is to try to see if we can get to the right scale of perspective, because my hunch, my hope, is that if we can, and that energy starts to exchange, that we will find an opening to seeing something in a different way than any of us had before. I think that's the challenge, is to try to get and hold that elevated attention so that we can help to bring this opening into this space, our time together.